Now that Season of the Witch has been out for a few days, I've been able to test each and every mod from the brand new artifact. The Acolyte's Staff's mods can suit a wide variety of playstyles, and in this video, I'll be showcasing which ones are worth using and which ones you can safely skip out on altogether. I'm Above, and if you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into it. Diving straight into column 1, we have the standard anti-champion mods, and though there isn't too much to cover here, I do want to give you my reasoning behind the mods I've selected today, because after all, we're limited to just 12 active mods at any given time. So the fewer mods we can get away with at the start of the artifact, the more impactful mods we can take advantage of later on. First up, we have anti-barrier auto rifle, and I went with this over anti-barrier bow because, honestly, if I'm using a bow in endgame content with champions, I'm likely using Wish Ender for its intrinsic anti-barrier capabilities anyway. Next up, we have Unstopped Scout, and Scouts are a solid weapon archetype that can commonly be used in endgame content like Grandmaster Nightfalls, so this is a pretty safe pick for me. I also went with Overload Hand Cannon because they are absolutely insane after the recent buff, and I skipped out on Unstopped Fusion because, honestly, fusions just aren't the best option in endgame PvE at the moment, and the ones that are commonly used, such as Riptide, already have intrinsic Unstop with Chill Clip anyway. But remember, these are all personal preference, so if there are certain weapon types that you guys love to use, by all means use them. It pains me to say this, but Column 2 may honestly be the most disappointing set of artifact mods we've had in recent memory. I don't find the mods here to be all that impactful, but there is one exception. To unlock Column 3, we'll need to pick up at least 2 of them, and first up, we have the Siphon mods. This is obviously personal preference, but I recommend unlocking just one of them to leave room for other mods later in the artifact. With how long armor charges last, I rarely find myself needing to run a combination of Arc, Solar, and Void Siphon mods in conjunction with a Strand Siphon mod where both weapons need to generate orbs of power at the same time. I personally went with Arc because it's what I enjoy playing the most with weapons like Forbearance and Hothead in the game, but the Siphon mod you choose all comes down to personal playstyle. In fact, the only mod I find useful in this column is Diviner's Discount, which reduces all scavenger mod costs to just 1 point, which is great value and definitely worth taking here. Moving on to column 3, we have Thanatotic Tangles. This mod states that strand weapon final blows have a chance to generate a tangle, which is great for those of you who use weapons like Quicksilver Storm. Though I didn't pick this mod personally, it's definitely a solid option for those who want strand power fantasy this season. I typically ignore any mods that increase origin perk potency, as they're almost never worth giving up a mod slot for. It's not that they're bad, it's just that there are usually stronger options in the artifact that overshadow them. Now it's time to dive into one of the most interesting parts of this artifact, that being the Elemental Orbs. These state that while using a subclass, weapon final blows that match that subclass have a chance to spawn an Elemental Orb. Arc Orbs will Jolt, Solar Orbs will Scorch, and Void Orbs will make enemies volatile. I've played around with these a ton over the past few days, and as you can see here, this Elemental Orb does about half of an Orange Bar Servitor's health in a basic open world Lost sector. So yeah, the damage just isn't all that impressive. But with that said, there is some incredible utility that can be gained by incorporating these into your builds this season, which leads me to column 4. First up, we have Overload Machine Gun. Now, normally I'd recommend this mod without thinking twice, but since we're limited on the number of unlocks we have, here's my justification for skipping out on it. First, if you're going to use a machine gun, you can always throw on Thunderlord and use its intrinsic overload capabilities instead. You also have to keep in mind that many of this season's GMs will have an Arc Surge applied to it due to the boss's damage types, which means that Arc will likely reign supreme in GMs once again. And if that's the case, you can always use Arc Grenades to stun overloads with Jolt without having to commit an artifact mod to it. We also have Overload Hand Cannons this season, which will be highly popular after the recent hand cannon buff, and Chill Clip, which is another popular overload option commonly seen on fusion rifles like Riptide. and it's for those reasons that I'm skipping out on this one. Next up, we have one of my favorite artifact mods this season. Elemental Fury states that while stunned, champions take bonus damage from your abilities and elemental orbs. I'm personally more interested in the ability damage bonus side of this, as it is a staggering 35% increase in ability damage when applied to a target. There are some pretty gnarly strand builds this season, which means after you've suspended an unstop, your follow-up abilities will deal significantly more damage. Not to mention the fact that arc grenades instantly stun overloads and will deal 35% more damage by default, which is pretty insane. I highly recommend this mod, and it's definitely one you should take in Column 4. Next, we have Communal Pickups, which states that when an ally destroys or picks up your Tangle or an Elemental Orb, the Tangle cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds, and you gain bonus damage with weapons matching your subclass for 10 seconds. The Tangle cooldown is obviously fantastic for strand builds, but it's the damage bonus part of this mod that makes it one of the best perks this season. When an ally picks up your Elemental Orb, you are instantly granted ×3 weapon surge for 10 seconds, and for those who aren't familiar, this is a 22% damage bonus. And the crazy part is that you're not even required to run surge mods to take advantage of this. It may not be active all the time, but you'll passively gain this benefit in a team setting far more often than you'd think. They get a free bit of damage against the adds, and you get a damage bonus for free. Even though elemental orb damage is lackluster, it's this type of utility that makes them interesting this season. As we move on to refreshing pickups, this mod states that picking up a Tangle or Elemental Orb grants energy to your least powered ability. Now, this sounds great in theory, but in my opinion, this benefit just doesn't warrant taking this mod. This mod will refund 1/3 of your least powered ability, but with how many ways we're able to ability spam already, I just don't think it's necessary this season, so I recommend skipping out on this one altogether. Next up, we have SemiAuto Striker. This mod states that if you have fewer than 2 stacks of armor charge, rapid precision shots with bows, snipers, and scout rifles will generate an armor charge. I can see this mod being exceptionally strong in solo play, especially in activities like solo lost sectors. One use case that instantly comes to mind is Wish Ender, where you can break a barrier shield and in the process of doing so, gain armor charges that buff your heavy weapon to finish the champion off faster. This is one of those mods that isn't super flashy, but will benefit you more than you realize in open play. Moving on to Column 5, there are several ways you can go here depending on if you're a solo player, optimizing for maximum boss damage, or farming on-level activities for god-rolled weapons. First up, we have Monochromatic Maestro, and this mod states that dealing elemental ability damage increases matching weapon damage, and elemental weapon damage increases matching ability damage. The bonus that is granted is 10% for 5 seconds. This may not sound like much, but it is stackable on top of all other buffs and debuffs in the game currently. As you can see here, when in a Well of Radiance, I hit for 2,354 damage with Sunshot, but after throwing my grenade at the boss, this number increases to 2,589. The longer the linger duration of the grenade, the longer the damage bonus will last. So for example, if you throw a Touch of Flame Sunbracer grenade at the boss, the solar nade will last for 8 seconds, and the damage bonus will then linger for 5 seconds after the grenade has expired. This means that you can get up to 13 seconds of a 10% increased damage buff, which can be pretty significant for day 1 raid settings. Next up, we have Rapid Fire Ranger. This mod states that rapid precision hits made from long range will weaken a target. This mod is somewhat comparable to Sundering Glare from previous artifacts, but has been adjusted slightly to make it more user-friendly. This mod provides a 15% debuff, but does not stack with other debuffs in the game. This mod used to require the user to be 40+ meters from the target, but has been adjusted to just 25 meters this time around, making it much easier to use in general play. This is also a fantastic mod for solo players, similar to SemiAuto Striker in Column 4. After all, a single weapon can now grant you both a buff and debuff when hitting precision strikes from range, which is highly useful in solo content. And I can also think of use cases like Oryx, where you're dealing damage from a distance with precision weapons, where Rapid Fire Ranger can replace Divinity or Tractor Cannon, giving you another person dealing substantial damage instead. Under the right conditions, Elemental Embrace is the one mod you need to take from the artifact this season. This mod states that subclass elemental buffs grant you bonus recovery and damage resistance against combatants of the matching element type. After testing this extensively and reviewing footage from other creators like ATP, we've concluded that this mod provides a 50% damage resist and a flat 50 recovery when the mod is active. This damage resist is stackable with other sources in the game, such as Tier 10 Resilience, Spark of Resistance, Woven Mail, and the like. And the benefits you get from this are actually insane. For Solar, Radiant will provide this. For Arc, it's Amplified, Void is Devour, and Strand is Woven Mail. Stasis seems to be the forgotten stepchild in this scenario, as it receives no benefit from this mod whatsoever. You can tell this mod is active when you see stat boost on the left side of your screen. Arc is a very common damage type in Destiny, which is why it's highly valuable on Arc subclasses. This perk will remain active as long as you're amplified and can be refreshed at any time. It's also very valuable on Solar, as Radiant is relatively easy to proc and can be extended by Ember of Empyrean via Solar weapon kills, which means you'll have this active at almost all times. Void and Strand, on the other hand, are a totally different story. First off, there are only a few enemies in the game that even deal Strand damage, so you'll almost never take advantage of this perk if you're a Strand main. Second, for whatever reason, this mod is laughably terrible on Void subclasses. This mod procs when activating Devour for the first time, but as soon as you get a kill to extend the Devour timer, it instantly strips the buff from you. I'm not sure if this is intentional due to the nature of Void, or if this is an actual bug, but if you're a Strand, Stasis, or Void main, this mod is not worth using at all. Otherwise, it's top tier. Next up, we have Elemental Munitions. This mod states that combatant final blows with Tangles or Elemental Orbs have a chance to drop special or heavy ammo, and this perk is really good when you're able to use it. As you can see, I have several heavy and special finder bricks that were produced by this mod, but you have to keep in mind that this is reliant on final blows from either Tangles or Elemental Orbs. As I noted earlier in the video, Elemental Orbs just don't deal enough damage to scale into endgame content, but this mod will shine in on-level content like dungeon farming or weekly raids with your fire team. We already have exotics like Aeons and Cenotaph to produce heavy ammo in Grandmasters, so this mod isn't really needed in those scenarios. This is a great mod, but as I noted with a couple other mods in this final column, it all depends on what you're using it for. The final artifact mod I'll be covering today is actually my only pass in the final column. Frenzied Stack states that armor charges grant bonus damage to your thrown Tangles or Elemental Orbs, and your armor charges now decay over time. This mod will linearly scale the damage of your Elemental Orbs by 30% per armor charge stack, and with Charged Up, I was able to get up to ×4 armor charges, which granted a 120% damage buff to my Elemental Orbs. With that said, the damage still wasn't all that impressive. This clip here shows the Elemental Orb damage at the usual ×3 maximum stacks, and still isn't able to kill a servitor in an open world lost sector. I'm not sure if Bungie is still scarred by what Warmind Cells did to the sandbox, but they seem to be overly cautious with Elemental Orbs, and I can't really recommend using them for damage as they stand right now. Well guys, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, because a lot of time and effort went into this one, so if you found it helpful, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated as always, and you can always catch me live on stream testing stuff like this over at twitch.tv/above, so feel free to come hang out and join in on the conversation over there. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.